Okay, so we've just worked through kind of introducing ourselves and getting a quick introduction to the course. So I've started the recording now, and oops, let me turn that off. And I want to start in the Blackboard site for the course, our kind of home base, the clearinghouse for all of our documents and communication and all of that. So you can get here by either going to courses.ccac.edu, which you see up top here, or you can go to my.ccac.edu to the portal and navigate to Blackboard through there. And then you can choose our course, 25 Spring Calculus 2, and you should get a page that looks pretty similar to this one. There might be a few things, that are on here that you might not see. And I'm also using the deprecated Blackboard site because I like this look instead of the Ultra look, mainly because I can control click and pop up a whole bunch of tabs. And, if I have a check-in to do on each course, then I can do it a little more efficiently that way. But your view should look pretty similar to this one. If we go down to announcements, you'll see the announcement that was sent out today. So you should have gotten this in your email with the Zoom link and some information in it. For the most part, in a Zoom course, if I need to make an announcement, I'll make it at the beginning of a class meeting. But occasionally I'll post announcements on here and they should be copied to your email address. If you're not using your CCAC email address, often if you're not checking it every day, I would recommend making sure that that's forwarded at least so that you're not missing emails. I'm going to go fairly quickly through the administrative side of things, especially with this being a Calc 2 course. A lot of this you can read on your own, and you should have some experience with this at this point. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time like I might with a lower level course. But in the Zoom tab, we have a little bit of information on Zoom, as well as the Zoom links for the course. We have a test site if you're using a different computer or device or internet connection, you might want to test it out first. The class meeting link, and probably at the end of this week, I'll announce my Zoom office hours. So those will start up next week. If you need to meet with me about something this week, don't hesitate to reach out. And I'm happy to meet this week. It's just that I don't really want to nail down days and times until I make sure that kind of my schedule is set as far as courses and all of that is concerned before I set days and times for my office hours. I also have a little useful websites tab here, some CCAC resources, and a couple of a couple of websites for other resources, and something that kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit here. Not a graphic design. Oh, that should say 25 Spring, but I'm not a graphic design major, as you can probably tell. Um, the classes will be recorded and the recordings will be posted on YouTube. So the YouTube playlist for the class recordings can be found at this hyperlink. If you click that, it'll take you to the playlist for this course. There's obviously nothing in there now as this is the first class meeting, but later today or tomorrow you should see this recording posted there, and then that's where they'll be posted in the future. And sometimes it takes me a day or so after the class meeting to get it posted. Typically, I try to post them same day, but sometimes the recordings take a little longer to process, or I might have to edit something out. So if I have to do a little more work, it might take me, a couple of days to get it up. But also, if you want to work ahead, I have previous class meeting or class recordings from a previous Calc 2 session that you can find on my YouTube site, or if you want to review some stuff, there are Calc 1 class recordings if you wanted to go back and review anything. So feel free to poke around my YouTube site and look at the other playlists. I try to keep them basically in order, going by class meeting, so in order of the material, but the names aren't necessarily the topic or the chapter and section number, but you can kind of follow along in Stewart or something and tell whether you need to go forward or backwards in the playlist. We have a syllabus tab and course documents tab, which we'll come back to in just a minute here, and the textbook information tab down here in the administrative info. You do need access to the WebAssign online homework system. those of you who took me for Calc 1 last semester should still have access to this. But those of you who took somebody else for Calc 1, if they used a different book or a different system, you might need to gain access to this system. There is a 2-week free trial, so I do strongly recommend that everybody go to WebAssign, log in, get your account created, get into the course today. Either right after class today or maybe this evening. And that way, if any tech issues pop up, we can get those sorted out earlier rather than later. We'll talk a little more about the WebAssign system in a couple minutes here. And here are some other useful textbooks that might serve as useful resources. So a couple of other good calc textbooks and a couple of good kind of problem set type books, Shaw's Outlines in the Humongous Book series. Let's jump up to the syllabus. With these hybrid courses only having 1 hour, I'm used to an hour, 40-minute block. So I have to move a little faster than I'm used to. But taking a look at our syllabus, again, I strongly recommend, your kind of 2 things to do for today for this course are get onto WebAssign. We'll talk a little more about that in a minute. And make sure that you read through all of these documents carefully. I'm obviously just kind of hitting the high points. I'm not going to read the whole syllabus to you. So make sure that you read through it fully, carefully. I'd even recommend taking out your notebook for the course and jotting some notes about the syllabus or these administrative details, where to find certain things on the first page of your notebook. Some course policies that stand out to you, maybe what the exam dates are, things like that, so that you have a pretty quick reference for later on in the course. Our meeting dates are 1/13, so starting today. And going through finals week, be a little bit careful that on most of our registration documents, the end date is listed as the last class meeting date. So something like May 5th, something like that. But then finals week is in addition to that. So if you have any travel coming up, if you're planning travel, make sure to find out when all of your final exam time slots or time windows are first. Make sure that you don't plan travel before the final exams are over. We're meeting 12:15 to 1:15 because this is a hybrid course. So it's 60% Zoom meeting, so 60 minutes per class meeting twice a week, and 40% kind of online supplement. So sometimes that will look like an extra recording with maybe some supplementary problems that I'll post. Sometimes it'll look like a review homework, maybe not graded as part of the course content, but maybe a review worksheet on, say, integration techniques that we might go over a couple examples in class. You would work on that on your own and then come back to the next class with any questions, something like that. So that can look, that hybrid component, that extra 40% instruction can look a couple different ways depending on just which week it is and what the focus is for that week. But an hour class meeting twice a week over Zoom, and then essentially an extra 60 to 80 minutes per week of kind of supplementary material outside of class. The grading policy, there's 40% of the course grade as homework. There are 2 exams, a midterm exam and a final exam, that are equally weighted at 30 percentage points each of the final course grade. For the exams, when they're coming up, I will post a sample exam, a sample midterm exam, and a sample final exam roughly a week before the exam window. So you can get a pretty good idea of what type of material will be on there, right? What the exam is going to look like, what the length of the exam is going to be, and so on. So you'll have a pretty good idea of what's on each of the exams about a week or so ahead of the exam. One note on expectations for email turnarounds. Please give me 1 business or school day to reply to your emails. So if you send me an email, I'll try to get back to it as soon as reasonably possible, but there are some times that I might not get back to it until the next business day. But that being said, if it's been a while, if it's been 1, 2 business days and you haven't heard from me, please send me a follow-up. So I really appreciate that when students send me a follow-up. If I get a lot of student emails, I also get a lot of administrative emails. I'm the head of the South Campus Math Department, so I get a lot of emails for that. either from administrators or from my fellow faculty members. So every once in a while, a student email gets lost in the shuffle, even though I do try to prioritize student emails. But if you send me a reminder, that pops into the top of my inbox and I should see it. Um, so I'd much rather have that happen. You send me a reminder, I can get back to you, maybe not in an ideal time frame, but in a much shorter time frame than if I, realize a week later as I'm looking back through my emails or cleaning out some administrative emails that I missed something. So definitely send me a reminder email if it's been a while and you haven't heard from me. I think this is, pretty evident for most folks in Calc 2, but just to be clear about the time expectations, time expectations for outside of class work, this could be kind of anything from studying, rewriting notes, going to tutoring, studying for an exam, doing homework, all of that kind of stuff. The expectation is 1 to 3 hours studying for each hour, work outside of class for each hour spent, quote, in class. And the supplemental instruction period would count for that, quote, in class. So we would look at, say, about 3 instructional hours per week. And with Calc 2 covering a pretty significant breadth of topics and being a more challenging course, we're going to be at the upper end of this. So 3 hours per week of, say, equivalent class meeting time means somewhere in the ballpark of 9, let's call it 10-ish hours of work outside of class per week to do well in the course. Now, of course, there's going to be variation from week to week, sometimes harder, sometimes easier material, and from student to student, right? Some folks have a little stronger background in a certain area, maybe a little weaker in another area, so there might be a little variation from week to week. But I would much rather have you plan a little aggressively, plan out, say 9 or 10 hours and only need 7 or 8, than the other way around. Um, there's this kind of interesting analogy with different types of courses that, some courses are like a train ride going from, say, Pittsburgh to New York, and some courses are like walking around the Pittsburgh Zoo. It's like if you are walking around the Pittsburgh Zoo and you walk past the elephants, and as you're walking past the giraffe, you're distracted on your phone and don't see the giraffe, but on the other side, you see the zebra or something. I don't know what order they go in, but you know, you miss the giraffe, but the kind of detriment to the whole is only missing the giraffe. Like you didn't see the giraffe, it would have been cool to see it, but you still saw the zebra and the elephant and all that. Um, there are others that are kind of like the train ride, where it's like if you fall off the train, I don't know, in Scranton or something, like you're not making it to New York, right? Like if you fall off the train in Scranton, the rest of the train ride is basically useless for you. Um, and math is a lot more like the train example than the zoo example, right? There are some courses, maybe like say a literature course, where you have 5 assigned readings, and maybe if you don't get this one so well, the second reading, maybe you can kind of catch back up to the pace on the third, fourth, and fifth readings. That's a little more like the zoo analogy. Math is a little more like the train analogy. So especially at the beginning of the course, over plan for the time, make sure that you're being really diligent at the beginning of the course so that you don't fall off the train, so to speak. Um, the exams will be proctored through the ProctorU platform. Um, we recently switched platforms. So up through last semester, we were using Examity. Examity was bought by ProctorU. And so they bought Examity and then they killed Examity. So we're using the ProctorU service now. So we're kind of adapting to that. I'm working with a couple of faculty members to see exactly what that tech is going to look like, and should have more information to you in the next couple of weeks or so, uh, as far as the details uh, of how to get that tech up and running. So keep an eye out for that. But um, the midterm and final will be proctored though. So just ensure that you have the ability to essentially participate in Zoom class meetings, so that you have, a laptop or a computer that can run a webcam and a microphone. So if you can participate in Zoom class meetings, you'd be able to run the tech to operate ProctorU. Okay, and again, read through the details here. I'm kind of hitting the high points, and barely even doing that given our time constraint. Um, Homework extensions are available. Read through the policy on them. Exam extensions essentially are not available. So the midterm and final exam, each worth 30% of your final course grade. Make sure that you don't miss those exams. Unless there's some incredibly extenuating circumstance, each of those exams are going to be open for about a week. So that should give you plenty of time to plan when to take the exam, find a time that works for you, plan it early enough in the exam window that if something happens, if there's a tech issue or something, that you have a buffer to work that out before the end of the exam window. Um, so make sure that you take the exams when they're scheduled and don't miss the exams. Again, probably a good idea to write down the exam dates, maybe in the front of a notebook, put it in your phone calendar or something with a reminder. And of course, I mean, I'll remind you in class as well. Typically the administrative reminders are at the beginning of class, so also, make it a point to be on time to class. You can use calculators on the exams, but your calculator can only be a calculator. You can't use, say, a phone or something as a calculator. Uh, I think for obvious reasons, because phones can do lots of things other than being a calculator. And this is our course schedule down here. So this is kind of roughly what we'll be covering each class meeting day. There's a little bit of flexibility here because we do have that kind of 80 minutes a week supplemental bit. So some stuff I'll kick to that and some stuff we'll cover in class. Sometimes it'll look like maybe I'll cover a couple of problems from each of two sections, maybe something like this, and then do a couple supplementary problems from each of those sections in the supplement. Or sometimes I'll cover a whole section in class and then just kick an entire section to the supplement. So again, just depending on the week, the division between the Zoom class meeting and the supplementary material might look a little different from week to week. But you see that we have the midterm exam week set. The midterm exam will be available from March 10th in the morning through Sunday the 16th at 11:59 p.m. And it'll cover chapters 6 through 9. And similarly, the final exam week really runs through Tuesday the 6th, I guess, on. But because we want to end our course on Friday or Saturday, I think it technically ends on Saturday the 10th, but we'll end it on Saturday the 9th just to make it a cleaner cut. I'll make the final exam available a little bit early, a little before the proper final exam week, back on the 2nd. So that way it gives you a weekend. For some folks, the weekend works better for them. So if that's you, then you can take the exam, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. And for the folks who a weekend works better, I wouldn't want to push the due date, back to say Saturday or Sunday, the 10th or 11th, because then the folks for whom the weekend works better, uh, you don't want to take such a high value exam like the last day of the window. If something happens, there goes 30% of your final course grade. That's not a good position to be in. That gives you no buffer. So that's why it's set up this way. And it's a cumulative final exam. So everything that we go through in class. Any questions on any of this so far?
Professor, are we permitted to ask you questions at the end of this lecture?
Yeah, I can stick around for a few minutes. Yeah, you can either ask questions a few minutes after lecture, or if you want to send me an email, that's fine too. Yep, whatever works better.
Okay, I just have a few questions I'd like to discuss with you after the lecture.
Yeah, that's fine. I can stick around for 5 minutes or so.
Okay, thank you.
Also in the syllabus tab, there's a workflow pointers document. I'm not going to really go too much into this, but I would strongly recommend reading it. I know it's not, super exciting reading, but I think it is really important to internalize these ideas, especially in a remote or online course. Very easy to get off track in remote or online courses, as well as some boilerplate. These are more like the college-wide administrative policies. So I've split the syllabus into kind of these three pieces that each have different goals. In the course documents folder, you'll find WebAssign registration instructions for the online homework and exam system WebAssign. As well as if you buy an access code from the bookstore, you might want to check out this third link here, gives a little more information. But our WebAssign registration instructions, this is from the Cengage folks, and it tells you how to enroll in the course. Note the class key up here on the top right in red. It's this whole thing, ccac.cc.pa space 4012 space 8728. Make sure the spaces are in there. Every once in a while, folks have a little bit of a trouble of tech issues logging on with this. I want to say maybe 1 or 2 folks a semester, and you can use the alternate WebAssign registration instructions if you want to try something, try a different approach if you're having trouble logging on. Again, you have a 2-week free trial, so you can get on, today, right after class or this evening, and use the 2-week free trial, get into the class, get all the tech set up, and then work on, the full access, the access code or whatever later on. If you're waiting for financial aid or anything to come in, no big deal there. And in WebAssign, you'll see that there are a couple of assignments posted already, some review from Calc 1, chapters 2 and 3, and chapter 4 and the first half or so of chapter 5. These are due this coming Sunday. So again, make sure that you get on today, that you get a good start on these review sections, because we're kind of hitting the ground running, right? Calc 2, there's a lot of material to cover. We're presuming you're kind of more or less fresh out of Calc 1, or at least up to speed on Calc 1. So this will be a good review. And then the new material for the course will be posted a little bit later this week. And again, there's a lot of just different bits and pieces around here. Access to the WebAssign homework and exam system includes access to an online ebook version of the book, which you can see right down here, Calculus Early Transcendentals 8th edition. And there's this study plan that some folks like as well. So there are some additional resources down here at the bottom that you might be interested in. So believe it or not, these 1-hour classes seem to go really fast because I'm used to an hour 40. We are almost out of time. Are there any quick questions on anything that we discussed today? I know that was a pretty quick run through. Okay, then let me stop the recording.